Hannah, I am sorry for any confusion, but you were never my choice. You were never going to be. I should have told you sooner. I am telling you now.
The Han River Pavilion sits on the 7th floor of a glass building in central London. The kind of place that does not have a sign on the street. The kind of place where the doormen know your name before you tell them. On a Tuesday evening in October, the room was lit in warm gold. White orchids in low arrangements ran the length of every table. The glasses had thin gold rims. The cutlery had been polished by hand. The Lim family had reserved the entire floor. Hannah Sarpong arrived at 7:30, exactly on time, in an emerald green dress that her best friend Nana had told her she looked like a queen in. Her hair was up in a high natural afro puff with a thin black silk scarf wrapped at the base. Her small gold hoop earrings caught the candlelight when she turned her head. She walked in alone. She had been told she would be welcomed. Han Jun Lim was already there. 3 years she had loved him. 3 years of late dinners in his apartment, of being the woman he came home to and never the woman he walked in with. 3 years of him telling her his mother would come around, that the timing was wrong, that things would change soon. She had believed him because she had wanted to. There is a particular kind of woman who builds a life out of waiting, and Hannah had become that woman without meaning to. He was standing at the front of the room when she walked in. He was not alone. A slender Korean woman in an ivory dress was standing beside him, her hand resting lightly on his arm. Hannah saw the hand before she saw the woman. Her stomach went cold first, and then her face did, but her feet did not stop walking. 40 people had turned to look at her. She was not going to give them the show they were waiting for. Mrs. Lim came toward her. Silver gray hair in a perfect low chignon. Pearl studs in her ears. A jade bangle on her left wrist that caught the light. She did not smile. She had never once smiled at Hannah in 3 years. She gestured to a seat at the back of the room and said, in a voice low enough that only Hannah could hear it, "Sit. Watch. Learn what you have been wasting your time on." Hannah sat. What followed lasted 9 minutes. 9 minutes of speeches. 9 minutes of toasts to a marriage that was being announced for the first time, between Han Jun Lim and So Yun Yoon, the daughter of a soul-shipping family Hannah had never heard of. 9 minutes of laughter she could not join, of applause she could not give, of 40 pairs of eyes that kept finding her across the room and looking away too fast. Han Jun did not look at her once. At the next table, 2 seats away, with his back half-turned to the proceedings, a Korean man in a charcoal 3-piece suit was finishing a glass of water. He had not been invited to the engagement. He had been there for a separate meeting in a private room off the main floor, and his party had been seated in the dining hall for the dessert course while the staff turned over the back room. He was the kind of man who registered everything in a space without appearing to look at any of it. His name was Jae-won Seo. The men he was eating with had not spoken to each other in 15 minutes because he had not yet given them permission to. He had glanced at Hannah when she walked in. He had glanced again when Mrs. Lim sat her at the back. By the time the speeches began, his eyes were not glancing anymore. When the toasts ended, Mrs. Lim turned to Hannah. She did not raise her voice. She said, in front of all 40 guests, that there had been a misunderstanding. That Hannah had perhaps assumed something about her son that was never true. That the Lim family appreciated her presence this evening. But the family would now like to clarify, for her benefit, what her son's intentions had always been. Han Jun was called forward. He came. His hands did not know what to do with themselves. He smoothed his tie 3 times in 20 seconds. He looked at his shoes. He looked at his mother. He did not look at Hannah. He said, in a voice that was supposed to be firm and came out small,
Hannah, I am sorry for any confusion, but you were never my choice. You were never going to be. I should have told you sooner. I am telling you now.
40 people went very still. Hannah did not move. She did not blink. She did not give them the breakdown they were waiting for. Her hands, large and capable and scarred across the left knuckles from a kitchen burn she got when she was 15, were folded in her lap. She let 3 full seconds pass. 3 seconds of silence in a room of 40 people that felt like every clock in London had stopped at once. Then she stood. She did not push the chair in roughly. She slid it back, the way her mother had taught her to leave a room she had been disrespected in. She looked at Mrs. Lim, not at Han Jun, at Mrs. Lim, and she said, in a voice that did not shake, "Thank you for the meal. It was beautifully prepared." And then she walked out. She walked the length of the room, past every table, past So Yun, whose half-second late smile had finally faltered, past the white orchids and the gold-rimmed glasses and the 40 people who would talk about this evening for the rest of their lives. Her back was straight. Her chin was level. Her gold hoop earrings caught the candlelight one last time as she turned to push the door open. The door closed behind her. The room exhaled. But out in the corridor, alone in front of a service elevator that was taking too long to arrive, Hannah Sarpong finally let one tear fall. Just one. She wiped it before it touched her jaw. She stepped into the elevator. The doors began to close. And inside the dining hall, 2 seats away from the woman who had just married into the wrong life, Jae-won set his glass down on the table. He did not say a word. He did not turn his head. He did not change his expression. But Tae-jin-bae, sitting across from him, the only man in the world who had known Jae-won for more than 20 years, looked at his oldest friend's face and saw something he had not seen there since they were 16 years old. Tae-jin reached for his battered dark notebook. He opened to a clean page. He did not need to be told. He looked at Jae-won and asked one quiet question. Her name. Jae-won did not answer immediately. He was still watching the door she had walked through. When he finally spoke, his voice was the quietest it had been all evening. Find it. If your heart just dropped with hers, you are exactly where you are supposed to be. Welcome to Afro-Korean Love Stories Vault, a channel built for the stories that stay with you long after the video ends, for the women who walk out of rooms with their backs straight, and for the men who never look away once they have seen them. If you are new here, take a moment to subscribe so the next Afro-Korean love story finds you the moment it lands. And now back to Hannah, because what she does next is not what anyone in that pavilion expected her to do. Hannah did not go home that night. She went to her aunt's flat in Peckham, where she had grown up between school holidays, where the kitchen still smelled like the jollof her aunt cooked every Sunday, where her mother's voice over the telephone was the sound she had learned to fall asleep to. Auntie Mame was waiting at the door. She had been a Lim man's woman in her own way once, long enough ago that nobody talked about it anymore. She took one look at Hannah's face in the doorway and she did not ask. She held her niece in the hallway for the length of one long breath. Then she walked her into the kitchen and she put the kettle on. Stacked gold bangles. Bone-straight bob wig. Eyes that had seen this evening coming for 2 years and had not been able to say so. By the time Nana Tum arrived 20 minutes later, in a mustard coat with her long box braids swept over one shoulder, Hannah was sitting at the kitchen table with her hands wrapped around a cup of tea she had not drunk. Nana sat next to her. She did not say anything at first. She just put her hand on Hannah's wrist, the wrist with the scarred knuckles, and she left it there. He really said it, Nana said finally. In front of all of them. Hannah nodded. And what did you say back? I thanked his mother for the meal. Nana started to laugh. Then she started to cry. Then she did both at the same time. You thanked his mother. For the meal. It was beautifully prepared. Hannah said quietly. And she started to laugh too. And then she started to cry. And the 3 women sat at that kitchen table at 11 o'clock at night, and held the kind of small ceremony that women have been holding for each other in kitchens for as long as kitchens have existed. At 1 in the morning, Hannah's phone began to ring. Mama Efua on a video call from Kumasi, where the sun had risen hours earlier. Her mother was sitting on her veranda in a wax print dress with her silver-threaded hair wrapped in a deep blue head wrap with gold thread running through it. She had felt it in her chest the moment it had happened, the way mothers do. My daughter, Mama Efua said. Her voice was very soft. Listen to me. Hannah listened. You are not your father's secret. You are not the woman waiting in the hallway. Do you hear me? You are not me at 30. You are not going to be me at 40. The thing that man did to you tonight, he did because he is small. Not because you are. Your name is going to be said in rooms one day. And the people who did not say it tonight will sit in those rooms and they will hear it said, and they will swallow their tongues. Hannah was crying. Properly now. The kind of crying she had not let herself do in the elevator. I hear you, she said. Good. Now eat something. You did not eat at that meal. Do not let his food be the last thing you refuse tonight. The next morning, Hannah Sarpong opened a notebook on her kitchen counter, and she began to write. She had been catering small private dinners for 2 years. She had a website that her ex-boyfriend had told her was a hobby. She had a logo she had designed herself at 2 in the morning during a slow week. She had a name picked out for her brand, in gold letters. Sarpong. She had been waiting for the right moment to launch. There is no such thing as the right moment. There is only the moment after the last excuse has finally run out. By the end of the week, the website had a booking form on it. By the end of the next week, she had 4 inquiries. By the end of the month, the first booking had been confirmed. A corporate event in Mayfair. 40 guests. A buyer she had not met. A budget that made her sit down at her kitchen table and look at the email 3 times before she replied. She did not know that the email had been sent from a desk in a glass office 16 floors above the river. She did not know that a man named J1CO had read her menu twice before he forwarded it to his procurement team. She did not know that the buyer she had not met would be sitting at the next table again the night she walked into the Mayfair townhouse with her own staff for the first time. She was not supposed to know. Not yet. J1CO's office was on the 16th floor of a glass building in Canary Wharf. The view from the window was the river. The walls were the color of wet stone. There were no photographs on the desk. There was a single thin worn silver chain disappearing into the collar of his shirt, which nobody who worked in that building had ever seen the locket on. On a Wednesday afternoon, a man named Choi sat in the chair across from him. Choi was an accountant. He had been working for the organization for 9 years. For the last 9 months, he had been skimming small sums from the bottom of 3 separate accounts, in amounts so modest that he had convinced himself nobody would notice. Tae-jin Bae stood to one side, his battered dark notebook open in his hands. He did not speak. Jae-won let Choi explain. He let him speak for 11 minutes. He let him sweat through his shirt. He let him offer 3 different theories about reconciliation errors, software updates, and a junior bookkeeper who had transferred to Singapore. He let him think the explanation was working. When Choi was finished, Jae-won did not respond for a long moment. He looked at the man's hands on the arms of the chair. He looked at the man's watch. "That is a nice watch," he said. His voice was very level. Choi did not know what to say. "Take it off. Leave it on the desk." Choi looked at Tae-jin. Tae-jin did not look back at him. Choi unfastened the watch with hands that had begun to tremble. He placed it on the desk between them. Jae-won did not pick it up. He did not even look at it. "Leave London by sunrise," he said. Choi began to speak. Jae-won did not look at him. "Tae-jin will drive you to the airport. Tae-jin will buy you a ticket. You will pick the destination from the 3 he offers you. You will not come back. You will not write to anyone in this city. You will not appear in any account associated with this organization in any country in any decade. Do you understand?" Choi understood. He stood. He left the room. Tae-jin closed his notebook and followed him out. The door clicked shut. Jae-won did not move for a long time. He looked at the river. The watch sat on the desk, ticking quietly, the only sound in the room. Then he reached for the phone on his desk and he pressed a single button. "Tell me again about the woman from the pavilion." For the next 11 weeks, there was something the audience knew that Hannah Sarpong did not. The corporate inquiry that landed in her inbox on the morning of the 17th of October, from a procurement officer she had never heard of, at a holdings company she could not locate on any search engine, had been forwarded by J1CO himself. The second inquiry that came in 3 weeks later, for a 50-guest private dinner at a townhouse in Mayfair, was also him. The man in the dark blazer who sat at the corner table at her test tasting in November, taking notes in a battered dark notebook, was Tae-jin Bae. Hannah did not look at him. She was busy. She was finally properly busy. She was the woman her mother had told her to become. Tae-jin wrote down everything. The way she handled her staff. The way she tasted the sauce twice before she let the plate leave the kitchen. The way she smiled at the buyer's assistant even though her shoes had been killing her for 40 minutes. The way she said the word please to a junior server with the same weight she said it to the buyer. He reported back the same evening. 16 floors above the river. 2 glasses of water and 1 man listening. "She runs her kitchen the way you run a room," Tae-jin said. Jae-won did not answer immediately. "Good," he said. That was the entire meeting. The Mayfair townhouse was the kind of address that did not need a number on the door. Hannah arrived at 3 in the afternoon with her staff in a black van. She set up the kitchen herself. She walked the dining room with the household manager. She tasted the broth 3 times. She did not see the host. By 7 in the evening, the dinner was running smoothly. The first 3 courses had gone out. The dining room was filled with the kind of quiet conversation that only happens when 40 wealthy people are eating something they cannot quite name. At 7:40, Hannah heard a sound in the back hallway. A door closing. Footsteps. She was bent over the counter plating the fish course. Her sleeves rolled to her elbows. Flour from the earlier baking still on the inside of her left wrist. She looked up. A Korean man in a charcoal three-piece suit was standing in the doorway. He had a glass in his hand. He had walked into the kitchen because he had heard a noise, or because he wanted to ask the chef a question, or because he had been waiting for an excuse for 11 weeks and the noise was as good as any. He stopped. He saw her face. The afro puff. The gold hoops. The scar across her knuckles where her left hand was steadying the plate. He did not pretend not to recognize her. "I saw you that night," he said. His voice was very quiet. Hannah's hands went still on the plate. She did not know what to say. She did not know what he was telling her. She did not know that this was a man whose name made other men whisper, that she had been in the same room as him once before, that her entire business for the last 11 weeks had been one man's quiet way of giving her the time to find herself. She knew only that a tall Korean man with silver at his temples was standing in her kitchen doorway and that he had seen something. "You walked out of that room, with your back straight. I will not forget it." He did not move from the doorway. He did not come closer. He did not need to. "The fish is ready," Hannah said. Her voice did not shake, although she was not sure how. "Take your time." He nodded once. He left. She stood alone in that kitchen for a full minute before her hands remembered what they had been doing. When the fish course went out, the plates were perfect. When the seventh guest at the head table tasted his portion, he closed his eyes for a moment. The host did not come back into the kitchen for the rest of the evening. He did not need to. There is a private dining room in a building on the north side of the Thames that does not appear in any London restaurant guide. It serves only one table at a time. The kitchen knows not to ask questions. On a Thursday evening, J1CO sat at that table with a man named Park. Park was a mid-level lieutenant in the CO organization. He had been with them for 6 years. He had a wife and a young son in a flat in Kingston. He had recently, very recently, become richer than his salary explained. They ate in silence. Park was trying not to be nervous. He was failing. J1 did not seem to notice. J1 asked him about his son. Park answered. J1 asked him about a holiday Park had taken to Jeju in the summer. Park answered. J1 asked him whether he had enjoyed the wine. Park said he had. When the plates had been cleared, J1 set his glass down. Tae-jin, who had been standing at the door, stepped slightly to the side. There was no one else in the room. J1 said, in a voice as level as the surface of the water in his glass. "Who paid you to find her address?" Park went very still. For a long moment, the only sound in the room was the small ticking of a clock that nobody had noticed before. Park did not stand up from the table. The address Park had been paid to find belonged to a woman in Peckham whose name was Hannah Sarpong. The man who had paid him was a rival named Woo Sung-jang. J1CO had been keeping her alive for 11 weeks before she had ever spoken his name out loud. Hannah found it by accident on a Tuesday morning. She was going through her business banking. She had been preparing the quarterly accounts for her bookkeeper. She noticed that 3 of her largest contracts going back 11 weeks had all been paid out of accounts that, when she traced them, led to the same parent holdings company, CO Holdings. She sat at her kitchen table in Peckham for 40 minutes. She did not move. The kettle clicked off behind her and she did not notice. Then she stood. She got her car keys. She drove across London. She did not call ahead. Tae-jin Bae was the one who met her at the lift. He took one look at her face and he did not ask her any questions. He let her through. She walked into J1's office without knocking. He was at his desk. He looked up. He saw her. He stood. "You bought my whole year," she said. Her voice was shaking, which she hated. "You bought every contract. You bought every event. Was I a project? Did you sit in your office and read my menu and decide that the black woman from the pavilion needed a little help getting back on her feet?" He did not answer her at first. "I am not a charity. I built that brand with my own hands. I have not slept in 3 months. I have prayed for clients in my kitchen at 4 in the morning. And you sent me 4 of them in October. You sent me 6 in November. You sent me the Mayfair contract 2 days after I walked out of that pavilion. Do you know what it means to me to find out that none of it was real?" He still did not answer. "Say something. Stand there and tell me I was a charity case." J1 walked to the window. He looked out at the river. His hands were unnaturally still at his sides. He did not turn around when he finally spoke. I did not buy you contracts. He paused. I bought myself the time to know you. He turned around. He looked at her for the first time since she had walked in. His eyes did not have a charity case in them. They had a man who had spent 11 weeks reading menus he did not need to read, approving contracts he did not need to approve, and sending a friend with a battered notebook to sit in the corner of a tasting in November to make sure no one was watching her who should not have been. I did not want to walk into your kitchen as a stranger. I wanted to walk into it as a man whose name you might one day be willing to know. I did not want you to owe me anything. I wanted you to have built it. The contracts were not a gift. They were the price of my patience. Hannah did not move. There was a man, J1 said quietly. A man named Park. He was paid to find your address. He was paid 11 weeks ago by another man, for reasons I will explain to you when you are ready to hear them. Park will not be finding your address, or any other woman's address. I want you to know that. Hannah's hand had gone to her own throat without her noticing. You have been protecting me. Yes. Since the pavilion. Yes. She sat down in the chair across from his desk. She had not been planning to sit down. Her legs had decided for her. I am not asking you to feel anything for me you do not feel. I am only telling you the truth, because you walked in here asking for it. Whatever you decide to do with it, I will not stand in your way. Hannah was quiet for a long time. I need to think, she said finally. Yes. She stood. She walked to the door. She paused before she opened it. Thank you. For Park. She did not look back. She left. If your heart is somewhere it has not been in a long time right now, I want you to do something for us. Pause for a moment. Subscribe to Afro-Korean Love Stories Vault if you have not already. Because the second half of this story is not a continuation. It is a different story altogether. And then share this video with one woman in your life who needs to hear it. A sister, a best friend, a mother, anyone who has ever been told she was not someone's choice. Tell her there is a love story waiting for her. Then come back. Because Hannah has a decision to make, and it is going to take her 3 days to make it. For 3 days, Hannah did not call him. She did not write. She sat in her kitchen and she thought. She walked through her studio in Battersea and she thought. She called her mother and she did not tell her, because there was nothing yet to tell. On the 4th day, she sent a single message to a number Tae-jin had given her at the lift on her way out. I have not eaten dinner. Have you? The reply came in 4 minutes. Where? She picked the place. A small Ghanaian restaurant in Brixton that she had been going to since she was 19. The kind of place where the auntie who ran the kitchen had known her since she was a child. J1 arrived at 7 exactly. He was in the same charcoal 3-piece suit. He looked, in that restaurant, like a man who had walked through a door into a life he had never been invited into. And yet he sat at the small wooden table opposite Hannah, and he picked up the laminated menu and he read every line of it. The auntie who ran the kitchen came out. She looked at J1 for one long moment. Then she looked at Hannah and she raised one eyebrow. Hannah smiled slightly, for the first time in 3 days. He is having the wache. And the fish. Yes, J1 said to the auntie. Whatever she said. The auntie left. They sat with each other in silence for a moment. Tell me, Hannah said finally. J1 told her. He told her about his sister. Not everything. Just enough. He told her that he had been 16 years old. He told her that for 22 years he had not allowed himself to care for any woman, because he had learned at 16 exactly what it cost a woman to be cared for by a man like him. He told her that on the 17th of October, he had been sitting at a table at the Han River Pavilion when he had looked up from his glass for reasons he could not explain, and he had seen a woman he did not know thank a woman who had publicly humiliated her for the meal. And he told her that something had happened to him in that moment that he was not yet able to name. I am not a safe man, Hannah. I will not lie to you about what I am. But I have spent 11 weeks making sure that whatever you decided about me, you would decide as a woman who had built her own ground to stand on. I did not want to be the man who saved you. I wanted to be the man you let in. Hannah did not say anything for a long time. Then she reached across the small wooden table and she put her hand on his wrist. The scarred hand. The capable one. He went very still under it. I let you in, she said. He did not speak. He did not need to. For 3 weeks, Hannah let herself believe. She let him pick her up from her studio in his car. She let him meet Nana, who blinked once when she saw him and then declared, an hour later, that he was either the love of Hannah's life or a problem, and possibly both. She let him meet Auntie Mame, who looked at him very carefully and then said in Chui to Nana that the man had grief in him but he carried it the right way. She let her mother see his face on a video call from Kumasi, and Mama Efua had folded her hands and said only, he looks at you the way I have been praying for someone to look at you. And then on a Monday morning, Han Jun Lim walked into Hannah's studio in Battersea. He had not been invited. He had not been expected. He came in with a takeaway coffee he did not offer her, and he stood in the middle of her studio and he looked around at the kitchen she had built without him. You are making a mistake, he said. Hannah did not say anything. She kept washing the bowl in her hands. That man does not love you. He is a collector. Do you understand? He collects women like you. The plus-size Ghanaian girl is a trend in his world. You are an experience to him. He will be done with you in 6 months. You will be the most expensive humiliation of your life. Hannah did not stop washing the bowl, but her hands had slowed. I know him better than you do. I know what those men want. I am telling you this because once, a long time ago, I cared about you. I am telling you this so you do not end up in a photograph in a tabloid I have to explain to my wife. He left. He did not slam the door. He never had. Hannah finished washing the bowl. She put it on the rack. She sat down on the floor of her own kitchen with her back against the cabinet. She did not cry. She thought about her father. She thought about her mother. She thought about 3 years of being the woman in the hallway. She thought about a charcoal suit and silver cufflinks and a scar on a jawline and a locket she had never been shown. That night, when J1 called her, she let it go to voicemail. The next day, when he called again, she answered, and she told him that she needed space. He did not push. Take it. I am not going anywhere. She hung up. She did not eat dinner. She did not sleep. 2 days later, walking from her studio to her car at the end of a late evening, Hannah Sarpong was grabbed from behind. The warehouse was in Tilbury Docks. Hannah was held in a back room with a single chair and a single light. She was not hurt. She was not touched. She was given water. The man guarding her did not speak to her. He was bored. He was scrolling on his phone. 40 miles away, on the 16th floor of a glass building in Canary Wharf, the phone on J1CO's desk rang. He listened. He did not say anything. He set the receiver down. The London corridor. For her. Tae-Jean closed his notebook. What do you want to do? J1 did not answer immediately. He stood. He walked to the window. The river was the color of old tin. He turned around. I want to visit a family. Before we go to Tilbury, I want to visit a family. Wu Sung-jang's wife lived in a tall white house in Hampstead. She did not know what her husband did for a living. She had been told he was in commodities. She kept orchids on the windowsill of the morning room. Her son was 5 years old and his name was Daniel. J1CO rang the doorbell at 4 in the afternoon. He was alone. He was carrying a small box of pastries from a Korean bakery in Soho. Mrs. Jang opened the door. She did not know who he was. He introduced himself by his first name only, as a business acquaintance of her husband's. He apologized for the unannounced visit. He had been in the area. He had wanted to drop off the pastries before the children's school holiday began. She invited him in. He sat in the morning room. He admired the orchids. He drank a small cup of tea. He spoke to Daniel about a toy car the boy had brought into the room. He shook Daniel's hand and complimented his grip. He stayed for 14 minutes. He thanked Mrs. Jang for her hospitality. He left. Mrs. Jang sat down on the sofa after she closed the door. She did not know why she had sat down. She did not know why her hands had begun to feel cold. She held the small empty teacup in her lap and she stared at the orchids on the windowsill. When her husband came home that evening, she met him in the hallway and she told him that a man named J1 had visited that afternoon. She told him what had been said. She told him about Daniel. Wu Sung-jang's face went the color of paper. He sat down in the hallway. He stayed there for a long time. His hands began to shake. They would shake for the rest of his life. By the time J1's car pulled up outside the Tilbury warehouse, the call had already been made. The man guarding Hannah's door had received a text message from his employer. He read it. He put his phone in his pocket. He did not look at Hannah. He stood up. He walked out of the building. He got into his own car. He drove north. The other men in the warehouse received the same message. By the time Jae-won and Tae-jin walked through the loading bay door, half of them were already leaving. The other half were not. Jae-won did not raise his voice. He walked the length of the warehouse with his hands at his sides. Tae-jin walked behind him. The men who tried to be brave were not brave for long. Jae-won found Hannah in the back room. He stopped in the doorway. She looked up at him. "Are you hurt?"
No.
He nodded. He did not come any closer. "Then look away for 1 minute." Hannah looked away. When she looked back, the room was as it had been. Jae-won was standing in the doorway with his hand held out. His coat was on. His hands were still. She took the hand. He helped her up. He did not say anything else. He walked her out of the warehouse with his coat around her shoulders. Tae-jin held the back door of the car open. Hannah got in. Jae-won got in beside her. In the rearview mirror, the warehouse receded. Tae-jin did not look back at it. Nobody in the car spoke. The safe house was in Surrey, a converted barn at the end of a long gravel drive. There were no neighbors for half a mile. The fire was already lit when they arrived. Hannah sat on the sofa. She was wrapped in a blanket. Her hands were folded in her lap. The shaking had started in the car and had not stopped. Jae-won did not sit next to her. He sat in the chair across from her. The fire was between them. He waited. She was quiet for a long time. "You killed people for me tonight," she said finally. "Yes. Tell me what that makes me." "It does not make you anything. It makes me. I did what I have done my entire adult life. The difference is who I did it for." She looked at him for a long time. "I cannot live a life where my hands shake all the time. I cannot become a woman who is always afraid." "I know. Then tell me what you can give me. Tell me what this is." He stood. He walked across the room. He did not sit next to her. He knelt in front of her on the floor, the way she had once seen her own grandfather kneel in front of her grandmother when Hannah was 7 years old and had not understood what she was watching. He looked up at her. "I never want to be the reason your hands shake. I cannot promise you a life where they will not. I can only promise you that mine will be the hand they reach for when they do." He reached up to his collar. He undid the top button of his shirt. He pulled out a thin worn silver chain. At the end of it was a small silver locket. Hannah had never seen it. He took it from around his neck. He held it in his palm. He opened it. Inside was a black and white photograph of a teenage girl. She was smiling. She was somewhere in summer. Her name was Hae-won. She was 19. She was my older sister. She was killed because she was the daughter of a man whose enemies could not reach him any other way. I was 16. I have not allowed myself to love a woman since. He closed the locket. He held it out to Hannah. "I am not asking you to wear it. I am asking you to hold it." Hannah's hand was already moving. She took the locket. She closed her fingers around it. The silver was warm from his skin. She did not speak. She did not need to. He saw her decision in her face before her mouth made it. He bent his head. He rested it on her knee. For the first time in 22 years, the most dangerous man in 2 cities let himself rest. 2 weeks later, Woo Sung-jang came to Jae-won's office. He had nothing left. His organization had been dismantled. His wife had taken Daniel to her mother's house in Seoul and had not yet decided whether she was coming back. He sat in the chair across from Jae-won. He asked for terms. Jae-won gave him none. Woo Sung left. He did not return to London. He moved to a small town in the south of France where his cousins ran a restaurant. He never spoke Jae-won-seo's name out loud again. For months later, on a morning in late spring, Hannah was in Jae-won's kitchen. She was wearing one of his shirts. The sleeves were rolled to her elbows. She was making breakfast. The scarred knuckles on her left hand caught the morning light. He stood in the doorway with 2 cups of coffee in his hands. He watched her. She felt him watching. She did not turn around. She let him watch. When she finally turned to take the coffee from him, he was smiling. A small, real, private smile. The kind he had not given any room he had ever been in. She took the coffee. She did not say anything. She did not need to. He bought Mama Efua a house in her home village outside Kumasi. He flew her in to see it. She walked through the room slowly, her hand trailing along the walls, her wax print dress whispering at her ankles. In the kitchen, on the wall opposite the window, she stopped. Photographs, 20 of them in matching wooden frames. Hannah at 4 years old. Hannah at 7, missing 2 front teeth. Hannah at 13 in a school uniform. Hannah at 19 in chef whites for the first time. Hannah at 26, holding her first menu in her hands. Every year of her daughter's life, on a wall in a kitchen in a house her mother now owned, in a village she had been born in. Mama Efua sat down on the kitchen floor. She did not know she was going to. Hannah came in. Hannah sat down on the floor next to her. They did not say anything for a long time. J1 stood in the doorway. His hands were still. His eyes were not. The restaurant opened on a Friday evening in October. A glass-walled venue with the kitchen open to the dining room. Above the door in elegant gold lettering. Sarpong. Mama Efua, in royal blue and gold, in the front row. Nana, in mustard, weeping openly and unashamedly. Auntie Mame, stacked gold bangles on her right wrist, raising a glass. J1 at the back of the room, where Hannah could find him with her eyes. The first plate left her kitchen. She carried it herself. She set it down in front of him. He looked up at her. He picked up the fork. He took one bite. He closed his eyes for a moment. He opened them. He nodded once. The dining room watched a man they did not recognize smile at a woman they had been reading about in a magazine. It was winter when he asked her properly. Snow falling outside the wide windows of his apartment. He had had the locket remade. The chain was longer, could be worn properly now. He stood in front of her in the kitchen. He fastened the clasp at the back of her neck himself. The silver settled warm against her collarbone. I am asking you now. I have been ready. The wedding was in Kumasi, a courtyard at sunset, bougainvillea along the path. Hannah in white and gold Kent, her natural afro out in full, gold woven through it. J1 in a custom suit in soft Ghanaian green with gold piping. Mama Efua walking her daughter down the path with her hand pressed flat at her own chest. Korean elders bowed in respect as Hannah passed. Tae-jin was in the front row, his battered dark notebook closed in his lap, a small genuine smile on his face. Mrs. Lim was not there. So Yun-yoon, who had left the engagement 4 months after a magazine cover had landed in her father's letterbox, had sent a letter that arrived at the morning preparation. Hannah read it. She nodded. She tucked it into her bouquet. The letter said only one sentence. Thank you for showing me what I had been told was impossible. 3 years later, on a Sunday morning, in their home in London, a 2-year-old girl in pajamas was running through a kitchen that smelled of jollof rice. Her name was Efua. She had her mother's eyes. She was being chased by J1's mother, who had come to love Hannah late but completely, and by Mama Efua, who was wearing her wax print and her gold thread head wrap. Hannah was at the counter, scarred left knuckles visible, kneading dough for the evening bread. J1 was at the kitchen table watching her. The way he had watched her at the Han River Pavilion. The way he had watched her at the tasting in November. The way he had watched her every Sunday morning of his life since. She looked up. She caught him watching. She smiled. He smiled back, fully, without restraint. A man who had not been smiled at in 22 years smiling back at the only woman he had ever chosen. In a kitchen on a Sunday morning, with their daughter in pajamas running between them. Han Jun Lim saw Hannah Sarpong for the last time on a Tuesday afternoon in a hotel lobby in Mayfair. She was walking out of a meeting. She was wearing a navy blazer and her hair was up in its full natural afro puff, and there was a small silver locket on a long chain at her collarbone. She did not see him. A tall Korean man in a charcoal 3-piece suit met her in the lobby. He helped her into her coat. He opened the door for her. He walked out behind her. Han Jun stood in the lobby for a long time after they had gone. He did not move. He did not speak. He understood, for the first time in his life, what the word choice had actually meant. The man at the next table chose her with one look. The rest of the world spent the rest of its life catching up. If the story moved something in you tonight, I want you to do one last thing. Go down to the comments and tell me which moment between Hannah and J1 is the one that is going to stay with you. The pavilion, the kitchen in Mayfair, the river, the locket, the Sunday morning. I want to know. Tell me who you thought of when you watched her walk out of that room. Tell me who you wished had been at the next table for you. Because every woman who has ever been told she was not someone's choice deserves a story like this one. And the love that survives everything is always, always worth the wait. This was Afro-Korean Love Stories Vault. I will see you in the next one.